Josh George here, talking college football preview 2022 in Conference USA, starting with the FIU Panthers. Look, FIU brings back only 2 starters on offense. After winning their first game of the season 48-10, they dropped to their next 11 games. They only have 3 starters back on defense as well, their biggest newcomer is linebacker Donovan Manuel from East Tennessee. They have competition at quarterback. It'll feature Gunnar Holmgren and Grayson James. And there's a lot of pressure on this choice for David Yost, as their defense has a lot of questions as well, as they were 120th in third down defense last season. It just doesn't project well for FIU this season. I've got him 1-11, 0-8 in conference play. Then, Rice. Look, the Rice Owls were 4-8 last season, and over the last 5 years have averaged 2.4 wins per season. They're projected 9th or 10th in the conference, depending on really what source you're looking at. Their biggest win last year was a 30-24 win at UAB. Their pro-style control-the-clock O has been really beneficial, as they had a fullback go for 600 yards last season, but they were 107th in scoring offense and 108th in total defense. It's just not a good recipe to win a lot of games. I have them taking a step back, going 1-11 this year and 0-8 in conference play. Now, Charlotte. The 49ers gave up 73 plays of 20 yards or more in the passing game last season. Defensive back Gio Howard is really going to try to help stabilize this defense and be the senior leader, as Charlotte was 117th coming into the power rankings this year. But their offense does look to tick up some with quarterback Chris Reynolds coming back. They also have 90% of offensive production around him, and they were 65th in total offense last season. But scoring points is one thing. Eventually, you've got to get some stops. I've got them 3-9 and 2-6 in conference play. Now, Louisiana Tech. They've got a completely new backfield, which was 106th in the country last year, and they've got a new defense under new defensive coordinator Scott Parker from Stephen F. Austin, who was 8-4 with a hard-hitting defense last season. But Louisiana Tech is projected at 114th in the nation, and Vegas set the over-under at 4.5 wins for this team. So how will Sonny Cumbie do at head coach with his air raid offense? Some people say that they're the dark horse, and I think that they are the dark horse to make it to the conference championship game. After all, Sonny Cumbie's been tutored by Gary Patterson and Mike Leach. But I project them at 5-7 with 3-5 in conference play. Now to Middle Tennessee, to the Blue Raiders. Rick Stockstill is one of the greatest coaches in college football as far as staying in one spot, which is really hard to do. He's been there for 17 seasons. He's 101 and 98, and they have the 40th ranked special teams coming into the season. But their offense was only 96th in the nation, and they only have 2 starters back on offense. And they were 59th in D, being 7th in turnover defense, with 6 starters back on D. Jonathan Butler, starting linebacker, had 21 solo tackles and is taking over the leadership of this role and is going to need to be not only a vocal leader, but much improved in his production for this team to get to a bowl game. I've got them 5-7 and 4-4 in conference play. Now, North Texas, the Mean Green, who are 4th in Conference USA's 2-4-7 talent composite. They netted 0 turnovers last year. They were neither plus nor minus in that category. They went on a 6-game losing streak at one point and a 5-game win streak. Seth Luttrell is 37-38 and adopted a more run-first philosophy, where they ended up with 283 yards per game at the end of the season and 5th in rushing offense in the nation. They also returned 90% of their special teams production. But when it comes to that struggling schedule, if they don't figure it out early, and last year they struggled early, they could be in some trouble and could miss a bowl game. I've got them 6-6 and 4-4 in conference play. Now to the UTEP Miners. Defensive back Dennis Barnes had 59 tackles and 2 INTs and was a bright spot in a team that was 35th in total defense, but 126th in turnovers. And they're going to have 4 new defensive backs around him this season. They have 7 starters back on offense, and Gavin Hardison, who only completed 55% of his passes. David Warren, offensive coordinator, likes to go to the air in the red zone, as 34 of their 43 touchdowns were in the air. They also have one of the most complete quarterback rooms this season, probably the most complete in Conference USA, as they are bringing in true freshman from Franklin, Tennessee, Jake McNamara. But when it comes down to it, having depth in the quarterback room really won't count for a lot now. I've got them 7-5 and 5-3 in conference play. Now, Western Kentucky. We all know Zappa. He broke the nation's record in touchdowns and passing yards with Zach Kitley, who is now off to Texas Tech. They also have a new defensive coordinator in Tyson Summers, but they had the number 1 special teams in Conference USA last year, as they were 72 for 72 in extra point attempts. Some other things to note is they do have 5 starters back on offense and have potential at the quarterback position with Austin Reed, who was a defensive D2 national champion at Western Florida. But he will compete against Jarrett Dodge, who kind of knows the system a little bit more, at least the Hilltoppers feel. But it's still not all together. I've got them 8-5 and 5-3 in conference play. Now, UTSA, the Roadrunners under Jeff Taylor, brought in the number 1 recruiting class in 2022. They also went 12-2 last season. And they were number 1 in Conference USA in the turnover battle. They have 5 starters back on defense, but are projected to start 8 seniors. And they were 14th in rushing defense in the nation, only allowing 114 yards per game last season. On offense, they have 8 starters coming back, and 9 of their projected starters are seniors. And they were 2nd in Conference USA in scoring offense and 23rd in the nation in offensive efficiency. So a team that looks to be really good. The problem is that non-conference schedule, those first 3 games, are going to be really, really difficult. That's why I've got them at 7-5 and 6-2 in the nation. 7-5 overall and 6-2 in Conference USA. Now, FAU. The Owls are really splashing on the nation. N'Kosi Perry could have that breakout year. Look, I really think that he's going to have one of those Joe Burrow. He's going to be the Joe Burrow of the Power 5, where he just, boom, plops onto the scene. N'Kosi Perry completed 61% of his passing yard, had a 61% completion percentage last season in 2021. In 2018, he only had a 50% completion percentage. Keeps going up. Like I say, splashing on the scene. He's got 5,255 passing yards in his college football career. They also have defensive coordinator Todd Orlando, who's going to go to a 3-4 scheme. When he was at FAU in 2012, they only allowed 19 points per game. He's also been a big star at USC and Texas. This team projects to only allow 21 points per game, which would be number 1 in the conference this season. And I've got them at 8-4 and 6-2 in conference play. Now, the UAB Blazers. Look, since their return to college football in 2017, they have boasted a 68.2 winning percentage over 5 years. Number 1 across Conference USA. Bill Clark, head coach, in 7 years is 49-26. And they have 7 starters that are returning on offense. But their quarterback, Hopkins, who Athlon Sports has said has been the best quarterback since their return in 2017, is competing for his job with Baylor transfer Jacob Zion. But they do return their run game production from last season with Brown and McBride, who combined for 2,100 yards last season, number 1 in Conference USA. They're also number 1 in returning defensive production. Even though they were 119th in red zone defense last season, against current conference opponents, they let in an average of 18.1 points per game. So they could be the best in the nation on offense, in Conference USA, on offense and on defense, and that projects really well. I've got them 10-2 and 8-0 in conference play. I've got since the top 2 get through to the conference championship in Conference USA, the way it checks out, I have it Florida Atlantic against UAB. Look, both of these teams would project a really good defense, and I know N'Kosi Perry's a great quarterback, but when it comes down to it, something just tells me that the Blazers are going to find a way to win this conference this season. So I've got them winning the conference, going 11-2, and sitting FAU to 8-5. I'm Josh George. This was my 2022 College Football Conference USA preview.